So welcome to the second day of International Conference on Indo-Pacific, Vistas for India-Japan Relationship and Cooperation. The second International Conference on Indo-Japan Relations organized by Center for Public Policy Research, supported by Consulate General of Japan in Chennai. I hope all of you had a peaceful sleep and ready to immerse yourself for the final day of deliberations. So yesterday we had 3 technical sessions. The first one was on synergies between IPOI, FOIP, and AOIP. The second was one on cooperation in emerging technologies, shipping, and seaports. And the third one was in best practices in disaster risk management, where we had a wonderful presentation from Mr. Rennie Lucas from the Kerala Fire and Safety Department. So after the exciting conversations, we are heading towards the 4th session now. The 4th technical session is on the theme Opportunities and Challenges in India-Japan Relations, Special, Strategic, and Global Partnership. The common vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific, free from coercion, will remain the driving force between India and Japan. The economies of both the countries are powered by robust bilateral investment and trade flows through diversified, resilient, transparent, open, secure, and predictable global supply chains that provide for economic security and prosperity of their people, and this will advance the India-Japan Special Strategic and Global Partnership. A conversation on the topic with our eminent speakers can help us better understand the opportunities and challenges in the Indo-Japan Special Strategic Relationship. The session will be chaired by Dr. Vijay Sakhuja. He's a distinguished fellow of Center for Public Policy Research and also the director of School of Integrated Coastal and Maritime Security Studies at Rashtriya Raksha University, an institution of national importance and national university at Gujarat. I welcome Dr. Vijay Sakhuja to the session. Now I would like to introduce the panelist of the session, Dr. Sato Takaro Sa, Professor, Global Economy Unit, Research Institute for Economics and Business Administration, Kobe University, Japan. Welcome you, sir, to the session. Dr. Rupak Jyoti Bora Namsai, Senior Research Fellow, Japan Forum for Strategic Studies, Tokyo. And we have Dr. Anmol Mukhia, who is working as an independent researcher. Welcome all. So with that, I would like to hand over the proceedings to Dr. Sakhuja. Kindly take over.
Thank you very much for this very kind introduction. I think you've done a lot of justice to the fact that you've introduced all the speakers for this panel. And let me share with you something very interesting about this panel and my connection with this panel. Of course, I'm meeting Dr. Sato for the first time. It's a pleasure to meet him. And Kobe comes back of some research work I've done on the city. And I'm pleasantly surprised to meet Dr. Bora because he tells me that we were colleagues in Singapore. He was in the Institute of South Asian Studies and I was in the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies, and we were next door, and we are meeting after literally about good 20 years. So it's a pleasant surprise for me. Thank you very much. It's great. And of course, Anmol Mukhia, my colleague at the Rashtriya Raksha University, was till very recently, and he was in the School of Languages and International Relations, another great person who's done extensive work. For me, it's both as I say, opportunities and challenges in the sense that I've got a great panel, and that's an opportunity. Challenges that I'm going to respond, how they're going to come out with their own issues that they're going to flag for us. But then, ladies and gentlemen, the question is today, of course, yesterday and this morning, we are engaged in India-Japan relations. Gamut of things have been discussed, debated, talked about, and new ideas have been thrown up. That's exciting. I think there were very traditional issues that have come in terms of economy, in terms of sea lanes, in terms of security, and a lot which now has entered into this domain of safety that we discussed, disaster risk, etc., etc. So we find that I think the menu available to both the consulate in Chennai, Japanese consulate in Chennai, and the CPPR is plenty. There are plenty to really look into what exactly they want to do, or maybe ahead of the curve, because we are into the 21st century, the 3rd decade, we are into it. All right. So we will probably be now working on newer issues. That's what we will look at. But then when it comes to strategic and global partnership, my panel is very diverse. They're going to talk about issues of connectivity. They're going to talk about issues of economic investments. So one would say that they should have been in another different panel, but I think I'm very fortunate, and that's where I call the opportunity, that we're going to discuss diverse subjects. At this juncture, let me also introduce for the benefit of my co-panelists and how I look at the whole issue about connectivity. To my mind, connectivity is, I think it's a buzzword. Mr. Modi gets up in the morning and he says, where is my highway? Or for that matter, where is my 8-lane highway? When I'm going to do about 8 hours of run from Mumbai all the way to New Delhi. And then again, what flag comes up is Japanese flag. Investment, infrastructure. Connectivity is the buzzword. Now that is physical connectivity we are talking about. We also have to talk about digital connectivity. We talked about it yesterday. Somebody very briefly mentioned about 5G. We are now working on 6G. Digital, we're talking about underwater cables, fiber optic cables, which carry bulk of what we see. Netflix and Facebook and whatever, Amazon and whatever you got, you're all seeing it through those underwater cables. That's another connectivity. Let me add another dimension called cognitive connectivity. Now, this is a new world that we are going to be moving in. And let us not forget the traditional issues of connectivity, cultural connectivity, religious connectivity, and how the maritime medium had connected India with Asia, for that matter, as far as Japan. How Buddhism had traveled all the way. So connectivity has been word, but each connectivity is unique to the medium that it comes from. Maritime connectivity is much, much different, and it requires different kinds of investments. Let me now expand this whole, not the maritime part of it, the connectivity. Ladies and gentlemen, Northeast, one of our panelists, rather two of our panelists are going to be talking about it. I think that's where we talk about, that's what we call as mountain connectivity. That will lead us to mountain economy. We're talking about river over there, big river Brahmaputra. That should give us a river economy because that will require another set of connectivity. So connectivity must not be generalized, that's my belief, and I'll argue in those many terms to suggest that connectivity should be looked absolutely connected to the geography that you're going to be in. And connectivity will drive you, investments will come in, opportunities will come in, ideas will, that's where we're talking about cognitive connectivity. So with this as a brief background, and I will comment on their papers, what they have presented, brilliant papers they've written, they've shared their synopsis with me. I think they're seminal in their own right, and they merit publication, and of course, there'll be a lot for all of us to learn, and rather in the form that whether we can cull out some policies out of it. Now, without any further ado, let me invite Doctor. Would you like to come and make your remarks first? Thank you.
Very happy to be here for presenting my research work. So, especially, I am very grateful for inviting me in this kind of the very good opportunity to interact all of you, especially the Center for Public Policy Research and the General Council of Chennai, Japan. So thank you very much for inviting me. So today, I'd like to talk about the overview of Japanese company in India. So this is the aim of my talk. So I'd like to give statistical abstract of Japanese multinationals in India for the last 2 decades, from 1995 to 2008. So in order to understand the long-term economic activity of Japanese multinational company, I would like to exploit the very rich information of the Japanese multinational company in the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industries unit level data of survey of overseas business activity. So just I want to talk about this data set. So this is a very, very difficult to access the data because the unit level data. So firstly, I try to get the national grant for this project. Then after that, I have to submit the research proposal to METI, Then METI screened my research proposal. Finally, I got successfully get the unit level data of this one. So to my knowledge, it is the first time to show the real situation of the Japanese multinational company in India for last 2 decades. So the data is very, very rare, and the data is very, very, has a very rich information. So today's my talk is based on this data set. So this is a definition of Japanese multinationals as overseas affiliate. So this is a very messy definition. Just I used overseas affiliate. On this time, we do not use the parent companies located in Japan. I don't use this information. Just I focusing on the overseas affiliate. Okay. So this is a definition of what is the multinational companies, Japanese multinational companies. This is the concept based on the overseas affiliates. Okay. So this study focusing on overseas affiliates located in India only. So there is some advantage and disadvantage of surveys overseas business activity. So usual researcher frequently used 東洋経済海外進出企業総覧 in English, directory of Japanese company abroad. So this is a very, very easy access. Just to pay some money to the 東洋経済. Very easy access. And also the availability of the company name. But disadvantage, poor data quality, and a lot of missing variables. So second one is the most frequently cited the very, very important information from Embassy of Japan and JETRO. Japanese business establishment in India. In Japanese, Indo 進出日系企業 list. So this is a very, very important information. I think this is the kind of the population list of the Japanese multinational companies. Most comprehensive one, free access. And also the availability of the company name, information of not only company, but also its establishment, factory, some working place, not only the headquarters, but also the establishment also available. And location information available in terms of the district level. Disadvantage, very few items just available. Company name, industry engaged, and location. So very short survey period. Just this survey started early 2000. So still the Embassy of Japan JETRO list is a very, very important. But today I exploit the METI survey of overseas business activity. Advantage, good data quality. Okay. So a lot of economic item surveys. Disadvantage, very, very difficult to access. No availability of company name. No information of local location within a company. So, and unfortunately, this survey excludes the finance, insurance, and real estate business. But still, METI's survey very, very useful understanding the long-term change in the economic activity of Japanese multinational companies. That's why today I use this one. Okay. Before talk about the real situation of Japanese multinational company working in India, before I talk about this one, just I want to share the very, very important information with you. So this is the size of Japanese multinational companies in the world. So unit is the trillion Japanese yen. So this is the size of Japanese multinational company in the world. So this is the Japanese multinational companies in the world. this is a volume. This volume is measured in the trillion Japanese yen. So what is this one? So this is the total export from Japan to world and total import from the Japan's import from the world. So this is the total import, Japan total import from the world. So this one is the total Japan's export to the world. 77 trillion Japanese yen, 72 trillion Japanese yen. So we can easily understand the trade surplus. Okay? 79 minus 77, export, import. So this is the total Japan's economy's international trade. Total volume, this one. So I am very impressed to see this one. Japanese merchant company in the world. So Japanese multinational in the world export to Japan 26. And this Japanese multinational company in the world import from the Japan 62. So you can see total Japanese export to the world 72. How much to the Japanese multinational company in the world? 62. Huge amount of the trade. So Japan now, Japanese economy has a very, very much trade with Japanese multinational companies in the world. And also we are also very, very impressive volume of the Japanese multinational companies. 161 Japanese trillion Japanese yen. This is the sales in the world. For example, in the America, USA, Toyota, please Toyota in America, Toyota get the huge sales in USA. These kind of things. And also this one, export to third world, more than 100 Japanese trillion yen. And 99 mean the procurement in the world. Okay, Toyota procured some parts and components from USA. And 35 is the Toyota, some Toyota import, Toyota in USA, import from some parts and components from Mexico. These kind of things. So this volume, okay, total volume of the economic activity, just like Japanese total GDP level. So very, very influential impact to the global world by the activity of Japanese national companies. Okay, how about the India and Japan economic relations in terms of the Japanese national companies in the working in India? Same figures. Size of Japanese MNC in India. What is the meaning? I think from the stage of earning from international trade to the stage of earning from foreign direct investment. That's why the huge volume of the economic activity Japanese MNC in the world. Okay. So, what is the implication of the Japanese company for the Indian economy? So I think Suzuki and Honda leads the Indian auto industries. Now the fourth largest producer of four-wheelers in the world. The world's largest two-wheeled vehicle market surpassed China. Now the 2.5 crore motorcycle per year produced in India. So according to the Narendra Modi-san, today India presents limitless possibility for make India for the world. In this context, Japanese company, I think especially the Suzuki and Honda, has been our brand ambassador for a long time. So for both the Japanese and the Indian economy, the trends of Japanese multinational companies are already important. And I think it may become even more so in the future. So this is my motivation. Just I want to look at the how many the number of the Japanese MNC in India. But very limited number. As you know, the list by JETRO and Embassy of Japan. Currently, the total number of the companies is more than 150, 1,500 Japanese company working in India. But as I told you, the METIS survey cover very limited. That's why the small number. But we can see that long-term trend, 1995 to 2017. So this is 20 years. Only 45 to 2017, in 2017, more than 500. Huge increase. This is capital. Capital also. 20 billion Japanese yen to 1.5 trillion Japanese yen. Especially you can see that from the 2007, 2008, huge jumping. This is due to the deal by the Daiichi Sankyo with Ranbaxy Laboratories. This is the employment. So due to, under my knowledge, my knowledge, there is no information so far. This is the first time to show that how much Japanese MNC in India create jobs in India. Very small one, 29,000 only, but 2.5 lakh. I think still increasing. I hope more than 3 lakh. So this is a sales value. Also you can see 219 billion yen to 5 trillion yen. Then most impressive one, this one, value added. What is the value added? If we aggregate value added of all agent, all economic agent, this aggregated value of the value added is GDP, gross domestic product. So, just so you can see the gross domestic product. 55 billion Japanese yen to 1.6 trillion Japanese yen. Maybe the 30 times increase. I just show the very small figures. Japanese GDP. How much increase? Same period. How much increase? So GDP generated by Japanese MNC in India, 30 times increase. How much Japan GDP increased from the 1995 to 2017? Only 6%. Only 6%. But the Japanese MNC in India created the GDP in India 30 times. This is a trade balance. So, you can see that this is a zero. If the plus value, trade surplus. So, especially the 2004, Japanese MNC working in India created the trade surplus. So, in this this means that Japanese multinational company in India obtain huge amount of US dollar. So this is a very good thing for Indian economy itself. Foreign exchange reserve accumulation. This is R&D expenditure. Still very low, but now 20 billion Japanese yen in 2017. Gradually increased. This is a outlier. Something happened, outlier just. But the slightly increasing. R&D. So R&D is very, very important expenditure for innovative activity. So I think this trend continuing. So because the Suzuki, not only Suzuki and Honda, but also so many Japanese companies invested in the R&D sector because they have to survive Indian market. Indian market is very, very competitive market. So they have to make some new product, new production process. So R&D is very necessary expenditure for this. So this is the percentage of Japanese equity share of Japanese MNC in India. So still end of the 1990s, still some regulation of the holdings of share. But especially after 2000, relaxation of holdings, holding ownership, then gradually increasing. Now more than 70% equity is Japanese side, not Indian partner side. So I think increase in the technological transfer will follow the increase of holding equity share for protecting intellectual property rights. So this is a final remarks. Japanese MNC has sales of 5 trillion yen and generate 2.5 lakh employment. Since 2004, the trade balance has been in surplus, now reaching the 736 billion Japanese yen. They have increased their shareholdings to over 80%, while moderately increasing the R&D expenditure. So without the concrete protection of the IPR, it is very difficult to do innovative activity. So this is a very, I think, very natural one, economically natural. According to the implication drawn from our previous research papers on foreign direct investment spillover effect. So Fujimori and Sato 1995, Fujimori, Furuta, and Sato 2021 Economic and Political Weekly. Japanese MNC, especially Suzuki and Honda, as assembly companies, seems to be having a tremendous positive impact on the productivity in Indian auto component industries. So I think our academic research activity is consistent with my findings based on the METI survey. So Japanese MNC will have both quantitative and qualitative contribution for enhancing Make in India as well as self-reliant India. I regard the Japanese investment commitment of 5 trillion Japanese yen to India, committed by our Prime Minister Kishida-san for next 5 years. I think as an appropriate plan for developing the capability of the Indian industries. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sato, for a very, very exhaustive presentation. And I think you covered lots of issues concerning our Japanese investments in India. I have few questions, but I'll reserve that when we have the Q&A session. But what I notice is that I think the graph is a very positive sign. That means it's growing at a very good pace. And given that the Indian post-pandemic, we are now growing at a good rate, I see several opportunities, and particularly in the automobile sector that you talked about. I think if one looks at some of the data which is coming in the automobile sector, is going to grow. And the very fact that in a state like Delhi, in a city like Delhi, where we're going to have only vehicles lasting till about 15 years of the shelf life, and other cities may follow, demand for automobiles will go up, both at the level of two-wheelers to four-wheelers or to the larger carriers. And as we move into, I'll talk about a little later in terms of energy transition, alternative fuels coming in, the EVs coming in. And it's just not the EVs that we're going to be talking about. We need a lot of supply chains connected with the EVs, electric vehicles. So this is a very fascinating presentation. And of course, the data is till 2017, but notwithstanding that, we find the trajectory is very, very useful and important and growing. Thank you, Dr. Sato. Now, may I invite Dr. Bora, kindly make your presentation, please.
Good morning and Ohayo gozaimasu. Thank you, Professor Sakuja, for chairing this session. At the outset, let me thank the CPPR, Center for Public Policy Research, Kochi, and the Consulate General of Japan in Chennai for inviting me to this conference. It's my second visit to Kochi. I've been here long time back with my father, who also came for an academic conference. He was a doctor. So now I've got my children to it. So it's a kind of history repeats itself. But I came by train. And that time, the Guwahati to Kochi train was the longest in India. It took me 3 nights and 4 days to travel, but I traveled with my son. So I think he had some medical doctors conference here in Kochi. And I was here last time in February 2019. And why I remember on February the 26th, and why I remember is that it was the day of the Balakot airstrikes. My wife was traveling, I had come alone. I was in Singapore then with the Institute of South Asian Studies. My wife was traveling from Guwahati to Delhi, and she was held up in the Guwahati airport because the airspace had been closed. So it's a very memory. I'm very happy to be back here again. So today I'm going to be talking about, a lot has been said about Japan and India cooperating in Northeast India. I am from Assam. I am born and brought up in Assam. I'm now working as Professor and Dean at the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, Arunachal University of Studies, which is the easternmost university in India. It touts itself to be the easternmost university in India in terms of location. And from India's land of rising sun, which is Arunachal Pradesh, literally translates into land of rising sun. I am looking at the land of rising sun, which is Japan. And I'm very happy to meet old friends and make some new ones. My first visit to Japan was in 2011 as a visiting research fellow with the Japan Institute of International Affairs, the Kokusai Mondai Kinkyuje. And I'm very happy to see Daisuke Kawai-san, who is now a research fellow with the same institute. So it's a mini gathering it's many memories flashing back. So today I'll look at Japan-India specific cooperation in Northeast India, analyzing the prospects and challenges. So let me see, I'm talking about specifically about Japanese investment in Northeast India. The total ODA, which is, as we know, Japan's the biggest chunk of Japanese ODA, which is official development assistance. It comes to India from Japan, and that has been so for quite a while now. It stood at over 1,600 crores as of January 2021. Source is the Embassy of Japan's website in India. And interestingly, and there is a kind of a cultural connect also between Japan and Northeast India. Now, there is a program called the IRIS program, which takes students from Northeast India to Japan. Now, I was very curious to know what is this IRIS, because it doesn't sound like a Japanese word, doesn't sound like an English word, and neither is from some Northeastern language. Then they told me that this iris is a flower which blooms in some parts of Japan and is also found in Manipur in Northeast India. So there's a historical connect. And during the Second World War also, we knew that the Japanese had come until Kohima in Nagaland. So there is kind of a historical connect which has been reinvigorated between Japan and Northeast India. And another thing is that in terms of food habits and other things also, I find Japan to be it's very easy to be in Japan for a Northeasterner because food habits, culture, climate is almost the same. And many times when I go to Indian restaurants, I am mistaken to be a Japanese. So that's my personal experience. Now, why is Japan interested in Northeast India? It's important for its free and open Indo-Pacific vision. Yesterday, there are speakers who have outlined that how from a strategy it was changed to a vision. And both Japan and India have not led the China-led BRI. And there is another interesting thing is apart from the BRI, Japan has also been showcasing what is known as the Partnership for Quality Infrastructure. Note the emphasis on quality because I think in MEA handouts also, we have seen that the MEA has flagged the issue of quality and sustainability and other factors, which doesn't seem to be present in the BRI. So for that, Japan and India have to show that they can collaborate in the infrastructure realm in somewhere. And the Northeast is I think is a good place for Japan and India to collaborate. And mind you, Japan is the only external power which has been allowed to invest in the Northeast in a big way. No, there are no other countries which are involved in a big way because of its strategic locations. By the way, Northeast India, it shares borders with Bhutan, it shares borders with Nepal, it shares borders with China, it shares borders with Myanmar and Bangladesh. So because of strategic regions, other countries have not been allowed a presence like that of Japan. Now this is a picture from my hometown, Guwahati. We are very happy that JICA has been assisting. I met Sakurai-san earlier in the morning as she has left. So JICA has contributed a huge loan towards the Guwahati water supply. And you can see the digging work in progress. Some part of it will be operational later this year, the Guwahati water supply scheme. So it gets water from the river Brahmaputra and it's cleaned up and then it's supplied to households in Guwahati. So this is a major scheme that is going on. JICA assisted water supply. So you can see the English and down below you can see in Assamese also it's written. Some of the major projects funded by Japanese ODA in Northeast India. Guwahati Water Supply Project, the Guwahati Sewage Project. Guwahati is the biggest city in Northeast India and like all major Indian cities, it's growing at a very fast pace, but the infrastructure is not keeping up. And what happens is that Guwahati is also the gateway to the entire Northeast. So people from all across Northeast come to Guwahati, they settle down for whether it be for education, they come to Guwahati hospitals in Guwahati. So it's become, I think in a kind of it's over flooded now with people. So infrastructure has not kept pace. And this is where Japan has been helping India and Japan can help in many possible ways. Then there's the Northeast Road Connectivity Improvement Project. Mind you, these are only some of them, not all of them. Project for the renovation and modernization of the Umia-Mumtru Stage 2 hydroelectric power station. Power generation in Northeast is, although it has tremendous potential, it has lagged behind other parts of the country. Especially because of the terrain, it's very difficult and it rains a lot, copious amounts of rainfall. Meghalaya, as you know, is Mawsynram in Meghalaya is the wettest place in the world, followed by Cherrapunji, and there are so many others where it keeps raining and raining. So projects, infrastructure projects, even if it is built, it is very difficult to maintain. Then there are sustainable forest management projects in Tripura. Sustainability is a major, I think, thrust of Japan's cooperation with Northeast India because you see, for that you have to understand the Japanese concept of mottai nai, which is like you don't produce waste. You don't relegate things, just throw them away. So sustainability, I think, is a major focus area and the Northeast has plenty of scope for that to happen. And then there are some of the other projects. I'll not go into the details. So, and now the buzzword is, as Professor Sakuja also said, connectivity. Prime Minister has also said many a times about the connectivity. Now these are this is India's connectivity push. So you see India, and here it's the Indian Foreign Ministry which is actually in charge of this road from Moreh, which is at the border between India and Myanmar in Manipur. And from Manipur it goes to, from Moreh it goes to Mandalay. From Mandalay, it goes to Yangon, and from Yangon, it connects to Thailand. So this India-Myanmar trilateral highway is under progress, parts of which are already completed. The current situation in Myanmar is, as we all know, is very difficult, so project has been hanging in abeyance. But as and when it is completed, we can see that it will provide a direct access for the Northeast, for the landlocked Northeast to Thailand and via Yangon. Now the problem for the Northeast is that when India became independent in 1947 and East Pakistan was created, later on Bangladesh, Northeast suddenly became a landlocked region. It was never so earlier. It had access to the sea via what is presently Bangladesh. But 1947 onwards, East Pakistan and then Bangladesh, you see suddenly Northeast becomes landlocked. And this is a major factor which is holding back the progress of the Northeast. But as and when this highway is completed, it will help India access the sea, and it is very close to Thailand. I was telling somebody that this Guwahati to Kochi distance, aerial distance is about 3,500 kilometers. If I had flown east from Guwahati I would have been in Naha in Okinawa in Japan. So you can see, as the crow flies, if you see 5 hours from Guwahati, I would be in Okinawa, I would be in Japan. So you see, the location is very important. And that is one reason also why it is interesting for Japanese to invest in India. And Japanese already have a big presence in Myanmar. Before the coup, it had a big presence. Many companies are now reluctant to invest in Myanmar, but they already have a huge presence. So it's just a question of joining the dots. So I have talked to Japanese researchers, some Japanese officials also in Tokyo, and they have said that till Myanmar we are already there. Historical connect is there. It's just a question of joining the dots. And you see, this is a picture from the India-Myanmar Friendship Road, which is built by the BRO, the Border Roads Organization. And there is another project that is being built. It's called the Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project, which will connect, as you see, the southernmost point of Myanmar, of Mizoram, is only around, say, 158 kilometers to Sittwe. And ONGC already, the Oil and Natural Gas Commission, already has a presence in Sittwe. So it's just a question of building this. This highway is being built, and then the Kaladan River is being dredged, all with the MEA assistance, Ministry of External Affairs, in collaboration with the RITES, and this is another major project that is undergone. So the entire picture is changing. And another thing that is happening is that Japan has invested in a big way in the Matarbari port in Bangladesh. Now Matarbari port will provide an alternative to the Chittagong port, because the Chittagong port is, correct me if I'm wrong, is not a deep sea port. So Matarbari to Tripura distance is around, the southernmost point of Tripura is around just less than 200 kilometers. So there are various connectivity projects it's a big, I would call it a new great game in the connectivity sphere is also going on. And both India and Japan are a part of it. And yesterday we have talked about the AAGC, the Asia-Africa Growth Connect. So many other things are going on, and this is another, I have already mentioned about AAGC. And then there is collaboration in India's immediate neighborhood, especially in countries like Sri Lanka. Now, of course, let us look at the challenges. Each state has a different terrain. See, where I come from, where I am working now, Arunachal is quite different from Assam, which is mainly plains. Tripura again has a very different terrain, and Nagaland also has a different terrain. So, the implementation of projects may be difficult. And it's not easy, especially because of the geographical terrain. Secondly, coordination at the local level between Japanese entities and different northeastern states may not be easy. Because you see, in many parts of the northeast, we have what is known as the inner line permit system. Where in Indian nationals, even if I want to go to, say, Nagaland or Mizoram or, say, Arunachal also, I need a permit to go. For foreigners, it is even more difficult. They have what is known as the RAP, or the Restricted Area Permit, or the PAP, Protected Area Permit. So it's not easy. So say a Japanese businessman can come to Kochi from Delhi early in the morning, do his work and fly back to Delhi or say Chennai or Bangalore and have his dinner. It's not like that in Northeast. They have to come to Assam or maybe go to Dibrugarh. But then getting the RAP, PAP is not easy, including for Japanese nationals. I have tried because I organized the conference last year in Arunachal. It was very difficult to get visas approved. So it's a very cumbersome process. So that is a limiting factor. And third limiting factor is that all the states are in different stages of development. Assam has moved much faster than other states of Northeast India. So it can be easy to get a JICA project done in Guwahati, for example. But the same project, if you do in some other remote part, it can be difficult. So I think a case-by-case study has to be done of each northeastern state instead of applying a blanket approach to the entire northeast. Then the terrain is mountainous. Some parts are very mountainous, and this path is also prone to earthquakes. So a road may be built, but the question is the maintenance. Maintenance is not easy. Yesterday, those of you who followed the news would note that very unfortunately an Indian Army helicopter crashed in West Kameng in Arunachal. Terrain is very mountainous, very difficult, and especially during the summer months, some of the areas become landlocked, become cut off for 2 to 3 months during the peak monsoon rain, when the rains strike. By the way, in Northeast, there are only 2 seasons, rainy season and more rainy. So there is no other sea. So either it rains less or it rains more. So the terrain is very difficult to maintain the infrastructure. And floods, again, are a regular occurrence. Now you see, these are challenges. You can see the terrain. These are from some parts of Arunachal which I visited. This is the Siang River as it enters Arunachal Pradesh. It comes from Tibet and then it flows. It's a tributary of the Brahmaputra. And you see the roads, earthwork is very difficult to cut. And then it is on the right side, and it is very difficult to maintain also, because you see, the moment it starts raining, these rocks will come down and block the road. And sometimes people and vehicles are also caught in between. So it's not easy. Now, why infrastructure development is key for Northeast India? It is important for continued economic growth in Northeast India. And it's important for India's foreign policy goals, especially the Act East policy. The Prime Minister and the government of India has been focusing on the Act East policy. Many things have happened within my lifetime. It was very difficult to approach remote parts of the Northeast earlier. I have been going through the Northeast for my field work, for travel, for holiday for a long time now. Now roads are much better, but there are still many challenges. And another thing is, per capita income in Northeastern states is much lower than some parts of the country. Now, for example, I was talking to a Japanese industrialist, a businessman in Singapore when I was in ISAS. And the thing is, for example, if Japan is producing something in Myanmar or something in Bangladesh, what is the buying capacity in the Northeast? So buying capacity also has to be there. Professor Sato has mentioned about the Japanese investment. So unless the income levels are, say 3,000 USD per person per year or 4,000 USD per person per year, a significant buying capacity, without a significant buying capacity, Japanese companies would also be loath to invest in the Northeast. Because if you invest in the Northeast, make a product and then bring it to Kochi, there is no point. It can be built here in Kochi, and India is a big country, as you know. So the buying capacity has to increase. So infrastructure development is important. And now JICA, by the way, is funding the construction of India's longest bridge, which will be 28 kilometers across in Assam, which will connect Fulbari in Assam and Meghalaya. So we now have very big bridges, very long and very good quality bridges. The present longest bridge in India is the Bhupen Hazarika Bridge between Dhola and Sadia. It's around 9 kilometers. And now the longest bridge, another bridge was being funded with a loan, with a JICA loan, and also with the government of India support, 28 kilometers across. So those of you who are from here, maybe it might all be all the way to the airport, maybe from here, 28 kilometers from here to the airport. So you can see that big. So this will be a major, and Japan also wants to connect to Bangladesh and Bhutan. The connectivity will become easier in the Northeast. So many big plans are happening, and you will see the result of all this in the next 10 years. And the road ahead, I'll stop here soon. Infrastructure cooperation in Northeast India is expected to grow, because this is one area where, as they say, it's a low-hanging fruit, and it's very difficult for the other countries to create hassles, because we are talking about infrastructure. This is not a defense investment. India has been putting a strong emphasis on improving state of infrastructure in Northeast India. Things have changed in the last 10 years, and they are changing even faster. And during the recent earlier visit of Japanese Prime Minister to India, this was, I think, this was not Kishida-san, maybe Suga-san. There was an initiative for the strengthening of the bamboo value chain in Northeast. Because you see, in Japan also, there is a lot of bamboo products. Bamboo is very well regarded in Japanese culture. In Kyoto, there is a bamboo forest, Arashiyama bamboo forest. And in Northeast also, there is a lot of bamboo which is cultivated. So there are innovative things that can become a physical connect between Northeast India and Japan. So I think I'll end here. I think I've almost come to the end of my time. I promise that I'll stick to time. And there's a picture from Arunachal. Those of you who have a chance, you can come. But I tell you in advance, visa is not going to be easy. So, but this is very close to the border with China. And it's a place called Mayudia, which is very close to my heart. And it's a picture from there. This is in February. Picture taken in February, and it snows a lot. And you see, it shows you how the terrain can be. Very difficult to maintain terrain, but this is where Japan and India can do, because there are similar terrains I have seen in parts of Japan, and they are very well maintained. So thank you. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. If you have any questions, of course, we'll have it at the Q&A round. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bora, for a fascinating presentation. And surely you told us about the multimodal nature of connectivity in the Northeast. I mean, there is a maritime connectivity, there is a river connectivity, there is, of course, the land connectivity. I think it's a very complex kind of a connectivity chain that we have. And of course, this connectivity will determine how investments flow into the region. And what was probably very fascinating about your presentation was you spoke about the, recycling, and rather what we in modern day times we call it circular economy, zero waste. While we talk about net zero, but there is also a concept called zero waste, and these days it's the concept called blue economy is resonating. But if one goes back into the history of blue economy, how did it all this word came about? Comes from Gunter Pauli, who used the term blue economy, but that was meant for circular economy. That anything that you produced, or the so-called the waste became an input for the purpose of yet another product. And I think in the Northeast, if you follow that kind of a circular economy, there is a lot. Of course, it is agrarian to that extent, and you would like to. And he used the term sustainability, very, very important, because we have to maintain that eco balance, which is very fragile, and also with the very fact that how the climate change is happening, etc., how it impacts the hazards, the earthquakes, man-made or natural. I think it's very fragile to that extent, and how far one has to invest. Again, there's a challenge here. How far, while there will be quality infrastructure, we'll have to be balancing it, how much we want to invest just to maintain that ecological framework or the ecological balance that has to be there. Thank you very much for this fascinating presentation. And now I invite Dr. Anmol Mukhya to make his remarks. Please.
First of all, I would like to thank CPPR, Center for Public Policy Research, as well as Consulate General of Japan in Chennai for inviting me for this program. And I would like to extend my thanks also to our Honorable Chair, Dr. Vijay Sakuja, whom I have known from the previous institution where I was working. He had been so kind to encourage me to come here. So, and about my topic, which is quite similar to Professor Bora's topic, which is about Northeast. I wish we could have met earlier and you could have discussed, but it's always a pleasure to hear from him about the detailed project which is going on in Northeast. But instead of talking about the project which is going on, maybe I'll more focus on the security project as well, so which will become a more challenging factors. Recently, I'm working with the government of Arunachal Pradesh in one project, which is quite similar because recently I visited Arunachal Pradesh for the first time, and in fact, those photographs which Professor Bora was, showing us in the PPT, which was quite like I have witnessed that kind of a terrain, and I myself felt sick for 1 week, came back with a sore throat. So that type of experience I had it. And this is my first time visit to Kochi, to southern part of India, and so that is also one of the best part for me, that at least I had an opportunity to visit. So my topic is about India's Act East policy and the role of Japan in the Northeast. As we have heard about Act East policy, in fact, it was look East policy since 1990s, long time back when P.V. Narasimha Rao government approach to looking into the eastern part. Because in eastern part, mostly the ASEAN countries, the 10 countries which are growing rapidly in terms of regional integration and in terms of the connectivity, and also extending its cooperation with the Eastern Asian economies. So the Act East policy, which comes with a more pragmatic approach, as many believe, because Act East policy is not only to look into the East, but we have to engage, we have to act, we have to more be proactive towards connectivity. If we talk about connectivity, which we have been talking since yesterday, connectivity, when we talk about connectivity in South Asia is considered to be one of the least integrated, or this connectivity is not happening because of many political issues, many conflictual issues with the neighboring countries. That is why we have approached towards connectivity towards the eastern countries. So, content of my presentation will be with the highlights of Indo-Japan vision of statement of 2018, some of the point related to northeastern part, and case study of northeast as will be important, I think, and a little bit of connectivity I will talk about, and China factor, because I think China factor is important. As yesterday someone was commenting, and he was right when he was saying that without reacting to China, why don't we have an alternative approach? But I think China factor is still important because dealing with the China factor, and then the whole idea, holistic approach will come out. Third will be with the Indo-Japan, Indo-Pacific vision, as Indo-Pacific have become so important now. So everything connected to the oceanic part, because 90% of trade, it happens in the oceanic region, and everything it connects with the oceanic part of the countries, which will be very important. And Indo-Japan Act-East policy, especially from 2017, we can consider Act-East forum, and opportunities and challenges. So some of the highlights of 2018 vision statement that we have been given importance to ASEAN unity and centrality, but this is a little bit of confusion, I personally believe, because when we talk about centrality, all the time we have been hearing about centrality whenever we go to the ASEAN countries, or whenever we talk about Indo-Pacific, or whatever is related to centrality. What exactly is centrality? Is it only about the unity within the ASEAN 10 countries, and to have a integration or to have a connectivity with the other countries? Because I think this also has to be reconsidered, and this has to be carefully, we have to watchfully think about it, because within ASEAN countries also there is still a division, I believe. Like some are pro towards China, some are, like China have become one of the antagonists. Like yesterday we have been hearing from first session chair have been highlighting this point. And other, like there is economic disparities also in terms of the countries which are growing rapidly, which are our Cambodia, which is very least developed, I consider, in terms of ASEAN countries. And second point is about the rule-based order. Rule-based order is very important in terms of Indo-Pacific, also related with our northeastern part. When we have a integration process, our Indians' Act-East policy towards connecting with the Southeast Asian countries. As we know, since 2016, when South China Sea verdict was passed against China, China still continued with the claiming of its territory, which is ruled by most of the ASEAN countries. Also, in the East China Sea, there is a problem with the territorial issues. And so these are the things which we have to look into it. Partnership for prosperity is important. Other than that, people-to-people exchanges, connectivity, because these are the things, this will help us to have a strong public diplomacy. These are the things which will help us to connect more integrated, not only with the physical connectivity, as Sir was mentioning, but also to have a different type of connectivity. Tourism is one of the important sector in terms of Northeast, at the same time with China, with Japan. And the higher education, empowerment of women, facilitate academic youth, like Professor Bora was mentioning, those points has to be considered. So looking into this picture, which I will not be talking about details about this topic, which Professor Bora have highlighted, like Durbi Fulbari Bridge, or in terms of Guwahati water supply project, Umayam hydroelectric plant renovation, Manipur schools, primary school project, or any infrastructure development. One thing is common that everyone knows and everyone spoke about it, that is Japanese investment, Japanese infrastructure development, which is happening in Northeast, which we cannot ignore. But when we talk about Northeast, I think this geostrategic importance of Northeast is very much important. Since the 1990s, we have been highlighting this point, that 2% only shares the border with the mainland India, but 98% it shares the border with the international border, like Nepal, with Bhutan, with China, Bangladesh, with Myanmar. And the 2%, it passes through the Siliguri corridor, which is commonly known as Chicken Neck corridor, which has 17 kilometer distance in wide. So this is one of the strategic location which has been seen from both within, from the center, at the same time from state itself. So Northeast, to become full-fledgedly in Act East policy, it stands as a gateway to the Southeast Asian countries. And since when former Prime Minister Abe came into power, he came up with the idea of this free and open Indo-Pacific. So major aim was to open up all trade routes in the Indo-Pacific. So connectivity becomes so important here. So infrastructure export is a major part of Japanese economic part and policy. But looking into the China part, as we have been focusing in China a little bit maybe since 2013 BRI project, which has been multi-trillion mega project, which has been funding in the almost all countries, not only in the Southeast Asia, but also in the South Asia. As we know that recently they have also about to complete kind of a railway activities in Nepal and Myanmar. So these are the things which is going on. But when we talk about China, I think in a foreign policy and international relation, it is important to understand about the Chinese intention behind it. I'm sure that most of us, we are from international relation here, discipline. So in international relation, there is a understanding of Chinese five-finger theory, because China is considered as dragon, and dragon five-finger theory is that the five-finger means especially the Himalayan kingdom, including Tibet and Ladakh and Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. So when we talk about Arunachal Pradesh, again, it is important to understand it because till now also, Arunachal Pradesh is considered as Jiangnan, which is meaning is southern Tibet. So this becomes one of the important topic of discussion, because when we are talking about the investment in the northeastern state, because northeastern state, it includes Arunachal, which is one of the largest area of northeast. So this becomes an important, because these are the because China is considering core interests as their minimalist goal. That means they are not going to bargain it. When we talk about South China Sea, when we talk about Taiwan, when we talk about Xinjiang, when we talk about Tibet. So I think it is important in 21st century to look into these things from very important point of view. Neglecting the Northeast itself is one of the biggest drawback for India itself. So the connectivity and having a Japanese presence is one of the win-win situation, is a plus point, not only in terms of economic, but also in terms of geopolitics, geostrategy, I believe. But when we talk about the kind of infrastructure development of Japan, we can see that Japan have also quite extensively, they have funded in the ASEAN countries and almost all the part of the world. So the Fitch Solution organization, which deals with the finance and insurance based in the US, they come up with the report in 2021 August that Japanese investment is $259 billion in an unfinished project, especially in Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam, as compared to China, which is $157 billion. So that means that it's a kind of a competition, but Japan is really doing it well. And even in the previous presentation, speaker have highlighted that Bangladesh Matarbari deep sea port, which is being developed by Japanese consortium. So these are the important things which is going on. Other than that, we have a connectivity of a cultural connectivity. When we talk about religion, for example, 86 million population are Buddhist in Japan, and we know that Buddhism have come out from India. So even in the early days, a monastic university like in Nalanda, Vikramasila, Udantapuri, Japanese student, Japanese monk have been visiting India. So with that things, we can see that there is a kind of a soft power flow already taking place in this region. And other than that, I don't have much study done about the Japanese enemy, but about the Japanese soft culture and all. which is fully flooded in the northeastern youth. Whenever we go to Nagaland, whenever we visit some places in Shillong and Meghalaya, we'll find most of the youths, they are fond of manga cartoon and all this anime. So it is kind of a plus point, we can say that. So, like Professor Sato have done some of the research about the phases of 1995. With this thing, we can see that it was kind of a stagnant growth, that 1.2 Japanese growth was lower to G7 and even to OECD. And in terms of that, India as a developing economy, which has a huge potential, 1.3 billion population and consumerist middle class population, is attractive to Japanese product. As I come from the eastern part, and I've seen now many Japanese companies like Miniso have flooded in our eastern part of India. So it's quite good to say. Other than that, Japanese decreasing population and India's human labor example, like IT sector, where Japan has invested from 2016 to 2022, created only within this period, created 1 lakh plus jobs. So in India's active policy, Japan infrastructure project is much needed. Japan investment of 3 trillion yen in 5 years is one of the positive impact, positive things which is we are witnessing now. Even in terms of the companies, 1,455 which companies is operating in India according to the embassy report, which is in terms of automobile, electronics, and medical devices, consumer goods, etc. So these all bring one of the agenda of like India setting out Make in India and Japanese working in India. So with this thing, I would like to conclude and I would like to give some of the suggestion opportunities because as I started working with the government of Arunachal Pradesh, and I saw that JICA have hugely funded in the almost all the Northeast except 2 states like Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur. So these are the things I think we have to reconsider, and we really have to look into these things, not seeing as kind of a drawbacks, but as an opportunity. Like in terms of Northeast India, which shares border with Bhutan, China, Myanmar, and Bangladesh, where Japanese infrastructure investment is extremely important. We also believe in regional integration, which we already have started, like in terms of BIMSTEC from 1997, or BBI and Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, India. So those countries are also attracted towards Japanese infrastructure. So this is a kind of a connectivity. When we look into in a broader perspective, I think it will be important. Other than that, about the northeastern region, where still there are some cases that we, instead of connectivity, we would like to go for a very pessimistic view. Like, for example, in terms of Manipur and Myanmar, since 2003, when there was a survey done by from our government as well as the Myanmar government, we started going for a fencing border instead of opening door. So this, I think, this becomes a little bit of contradictory to ACT's policy, since we already have a trilateral highway proposing, and only focusing on the kind of instability or kind of those negativity part. This connectivity might be kind of a like there might be a hindrance for connectivity. And recently, this government of Arunachal Pradesh is looking for opening a Pangsu Pass in Myanmar and Dongsaengmang Pass with the Bhutan. That means this connection is all about the cross-border trade and all about the connectivity, which also coincide with our ACT's policy. Pangsu Pass is, I'm sure Professor Bora is from those regions. He's working in that region because it is actually one of the trade corridor since the World War II, when Stilwell Road was active at that time from Ledo, Assam, and then it passes through the Nampong Pangsu, and then it goes to Myanmar, and then it also connects to the Yunnan, Kunming. Since we were a part of a BCIM corridor, Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar before. After the introduction of BRI and including this BCIM as a part of BRI, India was reluctant to continue with this BCIM. But in order to connectivity only with the Myanmar, I think this is quite feasibility. So the government of Arunachal Pradesh is quite interested to work in this area. And interestingly, looking into the eastern part of Bhutan and then to the whole region of the Arunachal Pradesh and also to the belt of Myanmar, also connecting to the Southeast Asia and even to Japan, one thing is commonality, that is the Mahayana Buddhism. So kind of religion practices will also help us to have a connectivity, to have a cross-border, to have a broader integration process. Other than that, about the inner line permit and restricted area have already been highlighted, so I'll not be talking much about this, but this is true that inner line permit is so important in Northeast. Last week I visited Arunachal Pradesh, but without any inner line permit, because I did not have time also to get inner line permit, and maybe by look, so I just they thought that I was Arunachali citizen, so I just entered it, and I had my pass with me. Pass means like I had my paper with me, but without that, without pass, like I was lucky to at least roam around and then come back. Because of my health condition and because of my time constraint, I managed it. But it is true that inner line permit is quite required. So IRLs and other than this cultural activities, I will not highlight it. But the last point, this cross-border trade, which India have been focusing much about, the ASEAN Highway or Kaledan multimodal project, which goes from the seaway to Sitwe to Paletwa and then to connect with the Myanmar, and then with the trilateral highway, which facilitate economic integration between the Northeast India, Southeast Asia, and also with the East Asian economics. This can reach the regional market where Japanese infrastructure and connectivity project in Southeast Asia, East-West Economic Corridor, and South Economic Corridor can be used as a win-win situation for both India and Japan. Thank you very much.
Problem, safety or security issues in our part of the world, in our country. There's a China connection. And I think, as someone said, that 800-pound gorilla, we can't think about connectivity without having had a good look at how they are building up. In fact, this is for Anmol. I just want to share with you, there was a belief long ago that if there was less connectivity in the Northeast or with borders with China, it'll be difficult for the Chinese to come in. And if you look at the flattened part of the plateau, I think the infrastructure that they have made is phenomenal. But we always look at the infrastructure, but we have not assessed the risks involved. After all, it is that mountain region, there's snow, there is a problem which is there in terms of methane, variety of issues are there. And so it is not so simple that they've got advantage. Probably a critical analysis of the infrastructure built by the Chinese along our border also needs to be assessed how good or bad they will be. But I'm glad you raised this issue about the the BCIM, and it's been quite a very, very promising project. But then suddenly it lost steam halfway down when there were apprehensions probably in New Delhi as to what is the purpose, how far the Chinese will come in. And by then we were already witness to what was referred to as Yangon to Kunming pipeline, which is operational, to push the hydrocarbons. And some scholars believe that it was to bypass the challenges of connectivity through the Straits of Malacca. So there is always a maritime connect involved in it. You're pushing, what you have is what we call as the China-Pakistan Economic or CPEC. We also have the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor. So these two corridors are like kind of pincers across, and they also play a strategic element into when you're conceptualizing the infrastructure or connectivity projects. And just to recall my own trip from Yangon to Mandalay, fascinating road, beautiful terrain, no problem, but I reached Mandalay, and thereafter the 110 kilometers I can't do because connectivity projects have been held back. Similarly, the trilateral highway is the same problem. That means investment is gone. Plus, also we must understand that it's not just that you start building roads. There are issues of geography. Tyranny of geography again comes in. Different terrain altogether. And again, what we talked about yesterday and today, mountainous areas, the landslides, and the way the rivers of kind of water bodies that are there. It is quite a challenging task. We always say, why can't we build it? Like the trilateral highway has been in business for a long, long time. But then we've not been able to progress much further because, again, the geography and the nature, which will always be, have to be looked at very, very carefully when we are developing these infrastructure. Well, having said that, 3 fascinating presentations by my co-panelists. I think they put a lot on the table, and I now open the floor for questions and answers, comments. Please make it brief, to the point, and let's have large number of issues which can be discussed and debated. And let me start from my right-hand side. Professor Pradhan.
Quick 2 parts of the question. One is that I think the larger debate is that we must connect and create economic growth. But at what cost? Virtually it is like the Chinese have built it, BRI. So we have to respond and we create reactionary infrastructure development, and then we more foster conflict, competition than cooperation. Instead of this kind of reactionary approach, I would rather look at South Asia or Southeast Asia, look at a framework where we have a cooperative infrastructure, where you can come, I can come, everybody can come, and these are not available for conflicts, free of conflict, peace roads, people, passes, and those kind of things. And also we have to look at, I think Dr. Vijay Sakuja also very rightly pointed out, Josimat is a mega example. Nathula Pass itself is also seismic, and many such challenges are there. So our reactionary approach is creating more trouble for us than I think some of you can give thought to this. Yeah, how do we handle this challenge? Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Janardhan. I'm a student of International Relations from Manipal University. Thank you for an enlightening lecture, sir, to all the panelists. My question is to Dr. Pora. Sir, you've talked about the challenges we have been facing in the Northeast region, where there has to be a state-wise survey also has to be done. So I have come across some news that, and also an analysis that Assam is playing a big brother attitude in the region when it comes to the development or even the politics of the other smaller states in the Northeast region. So is the investment and the infrastructure which is being done by Japan, is it impacting this phenomena, is what I wanted to know. And another question, any of the panelists can answer this. This is about India-Japan relationship. We term it, it's a bit digressing from the topic, but just wanted to know that we call it special strategic and global partners. So in that respect, I see very limited of strategic partnership which is directly taking between the two countries, but are we terming like the two countries, are these two countries terming, the technical cooperation, technological cooperation, and the global values of like free and open? Are these the only things which are concerned to when we talk about special strategic partners? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shakuja. Now, this is a suggestion to Dr. Sato and to the others. What Japan needs to do is for a larger trans-regionalism in the form of an infrastructure diplomacy that should come into that. I think connecting infrastructures across the borders is something which will be a grand strategic vision that Japan could do that. And that will be a very important counterweight to the BRI. And in that case, I think India and Japan can leverage possibilities in the Northeast, because Northeast is one area in which these trans-regional connectivities can build up a tremendous amount of what we could call as goodwill, public goods, and also in terms of how you translate the Indo-Japan relationship into a larger global vision. So that's my suggestion there. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. I have two questions. So one is to Dr. Bora. Thank you for your presentation, sir. And I was last year in Arunachal Pradesh, and I was in Bomdila, and then there is a big trade between Bomdila to go to Bumla Pass and come back. So one of the things was you said that it rains and it rains more, and I found that the roads in Bomdila itself were, maybe because of the rain, it was not in such a good condition, whereas everywhere across in Northeast India, the roads were fantastic. Secondly, I found that they are still using diesel vehicles. There is a everyday trade which happens, and that's the main source of income for a local lot of people. Why is it that we cannot design a project for greener vehicles, for EV vehicles, especially from Bombdila to Bumla Pass and come back? Because it's kilometer miles, it's not too much, but it happens. So, and I say that in the light of, sir, because I work very closely with the Smart Cities Mission, and there are projects which get financed from the Government of India. And just to give sharing a figure, you know, for 100 cities, we had allocated 50,000 crores for 100 cities in Smart Cities Mission. And for Northeast, you know, the aggregate amount which has been spent from 2014 till now is 3,37,000 crores. It is not that the funding is not there, sir. Dr. Mukhia made a comment about ignoring Northeast, and I was so surprised. I was so surprised. Northeast is an integral part of India, sir. There is no way it is being neglected at all. You look at the amount of figures which have been spent. If I talk specially about connectivity, sir, there are specific projects, you know, for capital connectivity, roads, rails, air connectivities, port, you name it. It's been happening. The budget allocation from last year to this year has been doubled, right? It's almost 5,000 crores which has been allocated. So my point is, I don't think Northeast is it's a neglected area at all. It is very much integral part of our active policy. But my main focus is like, how can we bring more green projects when this is the mode of livelihood for a lot of local people? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If there are more questions, can I come back to you for the second round? Yeah. My panelists would like to respond. Dr. Sato?
So I cannot fully understand what the one person had some inquiry to me. I could not understand what he want to say. But maybe the implication of the economic cooperation, especially focusing on northeast part. So, So I think there is very, very few Japanese multinational company located in northeast part of India. So I'm not sure. So these, Assam plus Seven Sister, maybe eight. Eight north. Yeah, 8 north part of the state government. Try to invite the foreign direct investment explicitly. I'm not sure. So, but the Gujarat government, Madhya Pradesh government, Rajasthan government, so many state government approach the Japanese multinational company, because I believe the most important thing is to promote capital accumulation. So Japanese multinational company contribute huge improvement of the capital accumulation in each state. So without capital accumulation, any state cannot has a very good economic performing. So how is the 8 northeast state government try to do this kind of the things, especially compared to the other states? So yeah, this is my response to the Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bora?
Thank you. In fact, I seem to have got quite a few questions directed at me. So I'll try to answer them in the order they have come. In response to Professor Pradhan's question, at what cost? Of course, it's very important to understand. I'm a teacher, so I think I like to stand up and speak. So,
Would you like to come here?
Yeah, I'd like to come
that's
here.
better.
Yeah, after all, you cannot.
You can remove the...
Yeah. So in response to Professor Pradhan's question about sustainability, at what cost, I think it is very important, and this is why I think I laid a special emphasis in my presentation also on the issue of sustainability, because we cannot simply be following the Chinese model. The Chinese BRI has its repercussions. We have seen that in Laos, we have seen that even in Myanmar, countries have pulled out of projects. We have seen what has happened in Sri Lanka. So we have seen, so there is a different kind of a model that Japan and India have to adopt, and that is where the issue of sustainability, the bamboo chain and others, they come into being. But that said, we cannot ignore, especially when it comes to Northeast, when China claims Arunachal, the entire state as southern Tibet. So as I think Professor Nalapat yesterday has said, we have to be realists on the ground situation. China claims the whole of entirety of Northeast and not entirety of Arunachal Pradesh. And we have seen that in the case of the Doklam crisis also, because there is this very narrow chicken's neck which connects Northeast India to the mainland India. The security importance of the Northeast cannot be ignored. So infrastructure has to be built, but the difference with the BRI is that it has to be a sustainable project, and it should not be a top-down approach. You see, when it comes to BRI projects, they are decided in Beijing, and then whether it's African countries or Laos or Myanmar, they don't have too much of a say. But Japan and India have been working on a collaborative basis, and that is the difference. But of course, the sustainability issue has to be there. With response to the research scholar from Manipal, by the way, I started my academic career in Manipal. Very fond memories of Manipal, and I ran into Professor Nalapat yesterday after maybe around 12 years or so. So regarding Assam, of course, things look, it's like same situation in South Asia. India is seen as a big brother, but we don't see ourselves as a big brother. We think we are benign, we are good to others. We have helped Nepal during the earthquake, but we do not always receive compliments, and then we saw there are many other issues. So Assam situation is same. When you see the Northeast, total population around 45 million, 30 million are in Assam. And by the way, for other states to come to Northeast, to Assam, they don't require ILP. But Assam to go to other parts, they require ILP. People from other states can buy property in my hometown in Guwahati. But if I want to buy property in Arunachal, I cannot. So you see, now you have to decide, there are two sides to the story. So you have to decide, and the issue is connectivity. All roads, as they say, lead to Rome. So in Northeast, all roads, investments, they are directed through Assam, they come to Guwahati. And now, of course, the good part is that there are airports which are opened up in other parts of the Northeast. For example, Lunglei Airport in Aizawl is there. Arunachal now in Itanagar has a greenfield airport, so that is another benefit. So it will take time, but the bridges and others that are coming on, we'll see the change in the next 10 years. And with regard to what role Assam has been, see in terms of size, it gets the maximum number of investment, and there are quite from Japan, and of course there are projects which have already started now. And as Dr. Mukhya also pointed out, Japan has not invested in Arunachal because partly of strategic regions, and even in border states like Manipur, they are strategic because of course then there will be repercussions at the international level as well. But in Assam, in the case of Assam, there is no such thing. Then, with regards to Dr. Prasun Agarwal, if I am getting your name wrong, I think yes, it's very correct. Diesel vehicles, I think when you went to Bomdila and then to Bumla, diesel vehicles, they add to a lot of pollution. But so I think it will be very good if I think we have EVs and others in there. But we have to take into account that the terrain is very difficult. For normal EVs to carry passengers from Bomdila to Bumla Pass on the China border, it is a Herculean challenge. But this is where Indian companies like Tata's and the Japanese can combine to design special EVs for such terrain. Because when for others who have not been to Bumla and Bomdila, he is talking about altitudes of around 10,000 feet to say 15,000 feet. And it is not possible. I see a lot of EVs in Kochi, which is very good to see. My children have also been pointing out that Kochi has a lot of EVs, more than in Assam. So, but to have EVs running at those heights is very difficult. So we'll have to have special plans for that. And of course, I totally share Mr. Agarwal's analysis that Northeast is not neglected. I don't think so. I'm from the Northeast, born and brought up in the Northeast, educated in Delhi, in JNU, and having lived all over the country and abroad. I think there's a lot of funding coming to the Northeast. Even now, the Prime Minister was there recently. There will be, the Home Minister was there. And now he'll soon be in Assam again on April 14th for the Bihu festivities. It is never, I don't think so. It is a question of where the funding goes, and it's a question of tracking also. Now, because I have traveled all over the Northeast, I have lived also in various parts of the Northeast. I've seen there are projects earlier which were only on paper, which never happened. But now you see, Digital India has changed many things. But now contractors, I talk with people on the field. Now contractors have to send geotag photos. And there are people in Delhi, and WhatsApp has changed everything, I think. Now the contractor sitting in some part in, say, some remote part of, say, Nagaland and building a road, he cannot say, sir, I have built the road, not built the road. He said, photo bhejo, geotag karke na. Now they cannot lie. So the things are moving at a very rapid space. So it's no question of Northeast being neglected. And there are various regional, there was insurgency earlier, but I think that is a thing of the past now. Things have changed and they are moving in a positive direction. And for the greener, I think the bamboo, I think it's a kind of the bamboo chain and others. There are initiatives that Japan and the northeastern states can invest in. And then these are the areas that Japan and India have to look. And maybe they can create a new model of investment and infrastructure cooperation wherein what they learn in Northeast India can also be replicated in other parts of the country, maybe in Southeast Asia. Wherein India and Japan can collaborate. So there is a lot that can be, that the two countries can do together in the Northeast. And again, on the issue of diesel vehicles, of course, they create a lot of pollution. Even if you go to, say, Shillong or Aizawl or the hill states, because of the rain, they create a lot of pollution. So it will be good to have Japanese and Indian companies, or even Indian companies, they can have, the Japanese are world leaders in lithium batteries and others. So we can get the technology, and even in Darjeeling, his place, we see a lot of jeeps, old jeeps, and they create a lot of pollution. So that is definitely a factor. And another major issue is the jhum cultivation, which is slash and burn forest fires. There are a lot of them in Northeast, similar to the ones in Indonesia and Malaysia, which create forest fires. So we can learn from how Indonesia and Malaysia have got rid of the forest fires, because when I was in Singapore, sometimes Singapore would be covered in haze for 2-3 days. There's a lot of issue, but the good thing is ASEAN countries, they cooperate. So now if ASEAN countries can cooperate, why cannot Northeastern states can cooperate to find a solution to this haze crisis, which happens because of slash and burn cultivation? Thank you. I think these are the questions that were directed to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bora. Anmol,
Yeah, thank
maybe
you
you
very much.
have some.
I only have one question by
Sure.
Professor Pradhan. And I do agree with you with this, India should not be reactive to what China is doing. And in terms of, you also highlighted about Nathula trade, which is not that much proactive. Is it, sir? Yeah. But there are some of the political reason also. And it's a kind of a quite positive aspect that we can see from 2006 when Nathula border started opening and then it started functioning. In the same year, 2006, when former Premier Hu Jintao, who visited New Delhi, he said that Sikkim does not belong to China. Earlier, China used to say that Sikkim belongs to China. So looking into this fact, Arunachal government this time have approached, because I was a part of that 2006 Nathula trade, making the concept note. So it was quite interesting that with this thing, like opening a kind of a trans-boundary as also Dr. Lawrence have highlighted about the trans-regionalism. So this kind of a things, it can be, kind of like 2 to 3 countries can make a kind of a trans-regionalism. So I believe that India should not be reactive to what China is doing, but India have to be proactive, because maybe today or tomorrow, China is coming with a different approach, and India have to, react to that. So in terms of avoiding that such kind of issue, today only if India will think more proactive and engage in terms of India way, for example, like how our external affairs minister have come up with a beautiful book, India Away. He have highlighted some of the countries to manage China, to engage Europe. So in that way, we can really work well. And I don't have much to say about Dr. Agarwal. He have highlighted about the issue about neglecting Northeast, but bunch of literature will talk about that Northeast have been neglected. And I do agree with Dr. Bora, who have highlighted that maybe that time, maybe it was not that tracking that of the economic packages. Maybe it's quite doing well. So I do agree with his point of view. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one note, Professor Lawrence Prabhakar. Yes, I think I totally agree with you that transnational kind of a connect can be initiated by Japan, India, and maybe countries like Myanmar and other Southeast Asian countries can be roped in because they have seen the impact of BRI, not been very happy. For example, in Myanmar, the Mitsun Dam project has been in a huge kind of crisis, and the Laos seems to be falling into a debt trap. So I think there is a kind of because what the BRI here, with BRI you get money without asking. Say $100 billion, okay, get it. The problem comes in the repayment. Now start repaying us. Getting the money is not a problem. It's like getting loans for buying a car. You can buy whatever car. Even the Indian banks, they provide loans for free. But the recovery agents will come someday. So it's like the recovery agents, they have to lease out territory and others. So Indian-Japan transnational kind of a new initiative can be worked out wherein that can be applied to other Southeast Asian and other countries, maybe in Africa also as a part of AAGC. Yeah. And once again, and thank you, Professor Lawrence, for the suggestion.
Thank you. I have lots of people raising their hands, but I have been told by the organizers that I must close this session in less than 45 seconds. Am I right? Let me ask the last question. No, there is a gentleman waiting right behind you. Yes, sir. For you, you raised hands. Yes.
First of all, let me extend my condolences for the Japanese delegation on the demise of Abe-san. And the question I would like to ask is that, like, how far did the personal bonhomie between the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Shinzo Abe had been instrumental in taking Indo-Japanese relations after 2014, and in what ways did it impact?
That's a thesis subject, but then I'm going to ask Dr. Sato to make very briefly Modi-Abe connect. And sir, you have just 45 seconds.
Me?
What took them years, I'm giving 45 seconds. I'm sorry about it.
I always appreciate the very good relationship between Abe-san and Modi-san. So, okay. Previously, Manmohan Singh-san and Abe-san, the relationship also very, very nice. And much more nicer than the Modi-san and Abe-san. So, unfortunately, last year, Abe-san passed away. So I'm very, very sad at that time. So, and also I expect the Kishida-san should focus on the India. So, okay. So this is okay. Very general impression.
Can you give it just 15 seconds to the test of a relationship between a Japanese and Indian is when, because we Indians, we invite foreigners home. Ghar mein aa jao, meet my wife, meet my son. And in Japan it's quite different. But Abe-san invited Modi-san to his home in Yamanashi prefecture. So that is the test. And I have had a few Japanese friends who have invited me to their homes. So those are the closest ones. So that is the test. And Abe-san had invited Modi-san to his home. So it's the personal connect was very strong.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you must buy a ticket tomorrow to go to Tokyo, right? And say, yes, I am here and I am a messenger for Modi-Abe Connect. All right, thank you very much. There is still, Professor Pradhan still feels that he has to ask this, and he's a dear friend, and I must succumb to his pressures.
Absolutely take the advantage of our friendship. My question is to Professor Sato, that I'm working on a paper on Japan-ASEAN terms of trade we are computing. And the last couple of years we see that Japan's export to ASEAN is falling. Okay. What the connotation of that is that Japan is outsourcing its export manufacturing to ASEAN countries. You manufacture it there and then export it to, and that's why the numbers are different.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
a growth model for ASEAN. Is there a kind of extension from ASEAN you can also divert it to India where it can create also employment?
Yes,
Thank you.
are right. Okay. Traditionally, economists focusing on the international trade between the two countries. But now we change this kind of traditional thinking from the international trade to global value chain. So that if we look at the global value chain organized by Japanese MNC, so it does not matter. No improvement of the international trade between Japan and India since SEPA started. Because the Japanese multinational company working in ASEAN and other East Asian countries, so they actively interact with the Indian economy. So this is okay. I want to emphasize these things. We should think the shift of the thinking from the traditional international trade to global value chain. So this is my point. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you'll agree that we've had a very fascinating session. Lots of questions, lots of takeaways, and I think several of us would have really enjoyed listening to new ideas, concepts, and the complexities involved in the relationship. And not to forget, sometimes we say out of sight, out of mind, Northeast. I think that was a revelation about the challenges, opportunities, and remedies that we may look. And I see several opportunities for JICA to really invest in. Of course, there are challenges, of course, licenses and other things. But I guess as we move on and there is a progressive note to the development of Northeast, I think India, Japan, both together can make deep inroads and contribute to the economy of the Northeast, or for that matter, well-being of the people. Thank you very much. You've been a great audience, and I'll close the session here. And thank you very much, organizers, for allowing me to spill over the allotted time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Sakuja. Thank you, Dr. San, Dr. Sato-san, Dr. Bora, and Dr. Anmol Mukhia for that wonderful conversation. The conversation was great, and it helped us in understanding more about the economic opportunities in the Indo-Pacific, Indo-Japan relations, and also the pressing need for more connectivity, where I think both India and Japan can come together. So now I request Dr. Anthony Dawson to give a token of appreciation to the chair and the panelist. I request Dr. Vijay Sakuja to come forward to receive the token of appreciation from Anthony Dawson, sir.
Thank you very much. You have to receive my token. Thank you very much.
So and now I request Dr. Sato-san. May I request Dr. Rupak Chaudhary Boras. Dr. Anmol Mukhia.